Alright, good morning. It is Sunday, September 1st. It's been a little while. Sorry about that. But we are now exactly 7 weeks out from Worlds and 13 days from Nationals. So we're coming down to the wire. Sorry it's been such a quiet time on my YouTube channel for this entire year so far, except for I think one video, but that's been it. It's just been a busy season in terms of racing and training and everything else going on. So I'm excited to take y'all along for the ride and give you a recap of where we've been and where we are going next. Last I talked, I was going over my New Year's resolutions for the year and sort of thinking about where I was, what I'm planning on focusing on for this year, what my goals are, and the trajectory of the season. I've been really working on building the bike leg, primarily. That's been, I think, kind of our biggest focus for this year, and really for last year, and really every year before then, because the bike is definitely my weakest leg. Or at least I think it was. Throughout the year, I've had, I think, 2 or 3 FTP tests so far, and I think we are back over an FTP of 300 watts, which is the first time I've done that in a couple of years now. So I might actually be at my peak, bike performance that I've ever been at. And that's a very exciting prospect. So the other stuff I've been working on, primarily just taking better care of myself, prioritizing recovery, and setting myself up for success when I actually get to the hard training sessions and races, obviously. So, what's the season look like so far? Well, we've had 3 races. There was Muncie in mid-May, then Huntington a few weeks later in June, and then late July, early August, I think, was Indianapolis. And those were all Olympic distance races. Muncie was kind of taking the season off to a rough start. Unfortunately, I did not get very much footage of this, so sorry for the lack of interestingness to it. But yeah, it was a tough one. Swim for me was unfortunately not very good. Then the bike was actually great, which has been sort of the trend all year. And then the run just absolutely tore me up. It was hot, it was hilly, it was sunny, there was no shade. It was just an absolutely brutal out and back run for 10K. So unfortunately did not have a very good time. It was 2:05 or something. Tried to tell myself, don't worry about it too much. And not worrying about it too much was the right decision, because then we turned around and had Huntington just a few weeks later, and that was dramatically better. Had a little bit more time to practice sort of the open water swimming. So that was marginally better, kind of about the same, but maybe a few seconds off. The bike, again, was about the same. It was a good out and back race. Mostly flat, nothing really interesting, but just very straightforward, kind of get it done sort of race. And I had a few people to work with on that one, actually. So we had 3 members of the team of Girona Racing Academy show up to a race in the middle of Midwest Indiana, which is kind of cool. And then the run was, again, dramatically better, though, this time. There was one big hill that you had to go over 4 times. It was a big out and back course. But other than that, it was totally flat. And there was better, race support throughout the course. So I was able to keep cool much better. And just generally had a better race. I think my average run pace was 6:00. Took 2nd place overall at that one, which I am not disappointed about at all. And had a much better time, a little closer to 2 hours. But again, that's neither here nor there. And then finally, just about a month ago, I finished up the normal season, at least, at Tri-Indy. The swim, and this was the first for me, was a point-to-point in a canal, actually. So the deepest it got at any point, I think, was 5 feet. So and there was no current, there was no chop, no anything. So it was basically just a big long course pool swim, which was awesome. So my swim time was dramatically better there, especially since I'd had a lot of time to practice long course and a lot of time to practice open water. All of that really did pay off, and yeah, I can't recommend enough. If you're a triathlete, get into a longer pool and do some open water swimming as well. Those will both pay dividends. The bike was fun but hard, primarily because it was kind of a mess. A lot of traffic cones, some very bumpy streets, and you actually had to cross a railroad tracks at one point. The run was just a big, like, 2-lap 5K each run course out along the canal and the river that goes through, like, downtown. So it shouldn't have been hard. My goal was to negative split the run, pace myself gradually for the first half and then really drive it home on the second. And I just didn't have the legs for it. So I instead of negative splitting, I was just barely holding on. Ended up finishing first by about a minute and a half. I could tell that if it had gone on much longer, the person in second probably would have caught me. And then was right around 2 hours again. So what have the big themes of the year been? Well, for the swim, it's mostly been about not just swimming hard, but swimming smart. We've had plenty of time, through the first half of the, the competition year, starting in October with my new coach, to focus on fitness and endurance and just pushing hard. And my times in the pool have been fine. I've hit probably some of the better times I've really been able to hit for the past, few years. But a lot of that towards the beginning of the year really just didn't translate into good performance in racing. So a lot of the focus has been good form, good technique, swimming in a way that allows me to maintain speed for an entire 1,500 meter swim. I notice a lot that during my longer efforts in the pool, I can really feel my technique falling apart towards the end. And that doesn't work out for a longer distance open water swim. As far as the bike, it's really just been a matter of staying the course. Biking has been going really well for me, both indoors on the trainer and outside as well. I do think that getting some work in, like in terms of interval work and structured workouts outside has helped a lot, but also just staying in on the trainer and grinding away has really been productive for me. And really, that's been the most successful part for me. I've never thought of myself as predominantly a cyclist. It's always been kind of my weakest leg, but in a lot of these recent races, it's been where I've been the most dominant. One of the ways that this year is very different for me than previous years have been, that I've been much more focused on the bike than I have before. I've been working on just generating more power, and it's paid off. The run, unfortunately, has been a struggle fest. That's where a lot of the harder work is that needs to be done for me right now. I am not as fast as I have been in previous years, not as fast as I have been at previous races. And we spent a lot of time kind of digging in and trying to figure out why that is. But I've gone from being able to hold my pace reasonably well for a full 10K to kind of getting maybe halfway through and then just falling apart and doing my best to hold it together to the end of the race. Figuring out why that is and working on that is kind of the big focus for this year. I think it's really a symptom of a few different things. First of all, I've never been good in the heat. That's something that's been a constant for me and continues even now. So I've been doing a lot of heat training, a lot of acclimation, doing a lot of my run workouts kind of out during the hottest part of the day. The other half of the equation, though, is understanding and accepting kind of how I've adapted over the past year or so. Ever since maybe October, I've actually gained a lot of weight. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually good for me because I was probably a good bit underweight for a little while, and it was causing me to stagnate and really hampering my performance. I think it's a big component of why my power on the bike has gone up a lot now as well. I have more to work with. But it makes things harder on the run because now I'm also just carrying more weight as I run, and that makes it harder to run quickly, it makes it harder to run light, it makes it harder to run more efficiently. And so getting used to that and just increasing my leg strength, increasing my endurance, so that I can continue to run fast and maintain faster speeds even at a higher weight has been kind of a big focus. It's been the challenge that I've been working through. The other side of the coin is that going back to heat acclimation, they say that generally the heavier you are, the more muscle mass you have, the less well adapted to heat you'll be. So what was originally my Achilles heel is kind of now even more so. So I really do have to focus on cooling myself down on staying cool and on, especially replenishing the fluids and electrolytes that I lose while I'm working out in general. Just within the past couple weeks, I've seen not only my dietitian, but also I've worked with someone to do some sweat tests and sweat rate calculations, and found out that not only do I have an incredibly high sweat rate, but I also have an incredibly high sodium content in my sweat. So kind of the double whammy of sweating a lot and losing a lot of sodium and a lot of other electrolytes per ounce per liter of sweat. I've been dialing in my nutrition plan this past couple weeks to include more electrolytes, more sodium, and have been really pushing myself to drink more on the bike and also during the run. So what comes next? Well, the regular season is pretty much over for me. I don't have any more races or anything going on this year, at least before I start to taper down. Then I have age group nationals this next Saturday. Then after that, I'll have age group worlds, which is out at Torremolinos, Spain. 2 more championship races this year, one of which is sort of a test run that'll help me get ready for the final race of the season. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself for nationals, or worlds really, but just give absolutely everything I can to end this season out on a high note. It'll be my first time racing internationally in a couple of years, and I'm excited to get out there. And after that, well, that's really it, both for this season and for the Olympic distance for me. See, it's always been my primary goal to eventually get my elite license and compete as a pro, at least some. But it was also a very important goal for me for a very long time to finish an Olympic distance triathlon in under 2 hours. I finally hit that goal last year at Nationals and decided that now that I had done that, I wasn't going to let myself get distracted by it anymore, and was going to really close the book on that period of my time as an athlete, which frankly I've needed to do for a long time, because my goal is not to be a sub 2 hour Olympic distance triathlete. My goal is to be a pro triathlete, and focusing on this very specific minute time goal is a distraction from that. I stayed at the Olympic distance this year primarily to give myself 1 year where I didn't have any specific time goals, any specific outcome goals, and where I would just focus on the process. And this was sort of really more of a gap year for me. Next year is when I really start firing things up and really focusing down on being the best middle distance athlete I possibly can. I'm really excited, more than anything, to see where 2025 takes me. And between now and then is kind of just a bit of time to have fun, really. Thank you for bearing with me this whole time I've been so quiet. I haven't had nearly as much time to document this process as I would have liked. And like I've said, there's been a hell of a lot going on, so it's been a busy process, but it's been a fun one. And I'm excited to round all of that out over these next couple months and really end things on a high note, regardless of how the race actually turns out. I'll do as best I can to take y'all along for the ride any way I can. Good luck for the rest of your races this season, and we'll see you all in Atlantic City.